My brother dropped off this rather large chisel and a piece of what looks like to be a broomstick, and he asked me to make him a handle. "Sure, no problem, I can do that," I replied. I started by drilling a stepped hole for this tapered shank on my vintage Kerger bench lathe. When the hole was drilled, I searched for some copper bits that I could use to smarten up the handle. I decided to use a piece of copper tubing as a ferrule, and a big nut from the back that should keep the wood together when hit with a hammer. And then it was time to move to my Ramatar wood lathe and select some tools. After some scraping, it was time to glue in the copper parts that I had chosen. I had to use some transparent glue because I scraped off more wood than needed. Luckily the glue didn't stain the wood. When the glue had dried, it was time to join the chisel and the handle together. The chisel was placed on a scrap of wood in the bench vise, and then it was hammer time. Unfortunately, I made the step drilled hole too small, and so I had to redo the project. The copper parts were salvaged from the failed handle, and I got a new stick of wood. I think it was even thinner than the first piece, so I decided to drill the hole deeper and wider for this second attempt. Then it was time for some more scraping, and again I had to glue on the copper bits. At the same time I also put some linseed oil on the wood. After drying, I tried to ream out the stepped hole a bit by twisting the chisel shank inside the hole, because to be honest I was afraid that the wood would split up for a second time. Next I wrapped the handle in some masking tape to protect it from the polyester resin I was going to use to glue in the shank of the chisel. I placed the handle in a machinist vise on the floor, and I mixed up some resin and poured that into the hole. I inserted the chisel shank, and then it was hammer time again. Of course I did protect the business end with a scrap of wood. When the resin was hard, it was time to unwrap the mummified handle, and I was glad to find out that the wood hadn't split up for a second time. I had to remove some residue from the masking tape, but I think the result looks pretty decent, and my brother should like it. By the way, some links to longer non-voiceover videos of this project should now be on screen. Check them out if you got some time to kill.